It's been a long day, but it doesn't feel like a long day. Some of us, we are talking right now a little while ago, and we are saying how it has been a wonderful time all throughout this day, from early morning till now. And in a way, the weather has helped keep us together. You know, we feel warm and cozy and happy together because it's rainy and a bit miserable outside. We were watching that beautiful magic show by Bimal Kemper, and I was reminded of a hymn that Adi Shankaracharya had written some 1300 years ago, the Dakshinamurti Stotram, where he says, this entire universe is produced by Brahman, like a great magician shows magic. He uses the term Mayavi, Mayavi eva, like a magician shows magic. Sri Ramakrishna also uses that. The magic is not real, the magician is real. So it will look behind the magic and try to find the magician. Swami Vivekananda was a magician. He transformed our views about ourselves. Tantine, Josephine MacLeod, she says that I have met many great people in my life. I have met many great people in my life. And she said she once met the Tsar of Russia. In those days they used to have Tsars. Even now they have after a fashion. And she says that when I met the Tsar of Russia, I felt how great he is and how insignificant I am. Tantine. And then she says, when I met Vivekananda, I felt how great he is and how great I am. That was Swami Vivekananda's impact on people. He would transform people's views about themselves. Our whole idea of ourselves would be transformed. And how did he do that? How did he see the extraordinary in ordinary folk? You see, we think of ourselves as limited beings. We are limited human beings. We are born and one day we shall die. Our bodies are so delicate. Slight changes in temperature and humidity and all, we feel all uneasy. And our minds, we have got so many desires, we strive to fulfill those desires throughout our lives, and inevitably frustration is our lot. And at the end, old age, disease, death awaits us. So this is the life that we know. And what did he do to transform our views about ourselves, our idea of ourselves? You see, when he came to the United States more than 100 years ago, he was fond of reciting one particular verse from the Upanishads, a mantra from the Upanishads, where it is said, listen ye children of immortal bliss, Shrinvantu Vishve Amritasya Putraha, children of immortal bliss, Veraham Purusham Mahantam, I have known that infinite reality, Aditya Varnam Tamasah Parastat, blazing forth like the sun, beyond all darkness. Tameva viditva ati mrityumeti. Knowing that alone we go beyond death. And nanyah pantha vidyate ayana. There is no other way other than this. So he would put this forth. This was his central message to us. That what we think about ourselves, what we know about ourselves for a fact, we do not really know ourselves. What we know is wrong. As Mark Twain put it in his delightful way, it's not what we do not know that gets us into trouble. It's what we know that it just ain't so. That's what gets us into trouble. Somebody said that about global warming recently. Those people who deny global warming, that it just ain't so. That's what's getting us into trouble. Swami Vivekananda, the central message he put forth in the West and in the East also, is this ancient message of Vedanta, but he put it forth in a very vigorous modern language, that we are not limited creatures of flesh and blood. We are not creatures who are born and fated to die after some time. We are not even minds subject to desires and anger and frustration and depression. We are not that too. We are rather creatures of light and spirit. We are immortal. Bodies are born and bodies age and bodies die. We are not born. We do not age and we do not die. We are incredibly ancient. Even the youngest one among us is incredibly ancient. We are spiritual beings going through a human experience. This is what he told us again and again. He redefined religion for us. It's so easy to understand the core of religion after Vivekananda. If you just think about it, what is religion is a difficult question. Just a couple of days ago, a young man asked me, so what is religion? I have no problem because I've read Vivekananda. Each soul is potentially divine. We are spirit. And the goal of human life is to manifest the spirit within, to realize that we are spirit. It's not wrong that we have bodies and minds. It's not false. So Vivekananda says, what you know is not wrong, but it's very superficial. You do not know the whole truth. The whole truth about ourselves is that we are divine. And the goal is to manifest this divinity. And all the practices that we do in religion, the bhajan that we do in the temples, the meditation that we do in on our meditation mats, the scriptures that we read and reason and philosophize, and the selfless service, the food drives that we conduct and so on, all of that, these are ways in which we recognize our inherent divinity and manifest it in life and action. And this is religion. Swami Vivekananda said, this is religion. To do this and find freedom is religion. Books, temples, doctrines, churches, they're all secondary details. So this was a central message which he gave to the East and the West. And allied with this was the other message he spoke about, the unity of all existence. It's not that we are individual divinities, individual spirits separated from each other. And the great German philosopher Leibniz spoke about monads. Like stars in the night sky, we are all consciousnesses but separate from each other. Vedanta says we are one existence. It is one consciousness. The hymn I referred to at the beginning, written by Shankaracharya, there he speaks about a light shining forth inside a big pot, a big earthen jar. From outside, if you see from the holes in the jar, several rays of light are pouring out. In the same way, there is one consciousness and several rays of consciousness are shining through each one of us. We are not separate at the source. Physically, we are separate. Mentally, we are different. But at the source, in our deep innermost reality, we are one and the same existence. Swami Vivekananda again and again spoke of the unity of all existence, the oneness of all existence, the Brahman, which is at the background of all that we see and experience. And he says that is what we are, and we have to recognize that. We have to realize that in life and manifest it in our daily life. Now this may seem to be a very lofty philosophy. What good is it? Is it so lofty that we cannot aspire for it? Is it something that is very difficult for a few monks, for a few philosophers maybe? But Swami Vivekananda, if not anything else, he was eminently practical also. He showed us that each one of us can progress and is progressing at his or her own pace, in his or her own way. You don't have to be a jnani, or you don't have to be a bhakta, you don't have to do image worship, or you don't have to reject images. None of those are compulsory. These are all different ways in which humanity has been searching for the divine. And all of them are valid. We can, in fact, when Swami Vivekananda was asked why there are so many sects in religions, and he said, I wish to God that there are as many sects as there are human beings. So we have nearly 7 billion people, so he would say that 7 billion sects are perfectly all right. Truly speaking, when we look at the religion we believe in and we practice, whatever we may label ourselves, Hindu, Buddhist, Christian, humanist, whatever we call ourselves, we'll find that each one of us has understood the religion in our own way. Even if you follow a very narrow fundamentalist interpretation of a faith, even there also you will find each person has interpreted in his or her own way. So we really do have so many sects, so many understandings of religion. And Swami Vivekananda said, that's perfectly all right. One of the great teachings he gave was no criticism, no negativity about your own religion or especially about others. He says it is hypocritical to criticize a religion from outside. It's mischievous, he says, to criticize religion from outside that religion, not a part of the tradition. Externally we look at it and criticize it. He says it is mischievous to do that. He had a message for the West and for the East. In India, he found this ancient civilization, thousands of years old, with a glorious spiritual heritage, but a very sorry present. And what he did was, he wanted to reawaken the country. He did not have small goals. He had about 10 years of time, and he wanted to change the world. That was the only little thing that, in a to-do list. So, it is awaken India, spread Vedanta and spiritualize the world, spreading Vedanta to the West, open the doors of Oriental spiritual knowledge to flow to the West. These are 2 or 3 to-do points which he had to finish in 10 years. And in India, he saw the tamas that had come into the nation, the centuries of slavery, of weakness, of superstition, which had overlaid the ancient religion of the Upanishads. There's a very inspiring and instructive incident where Swami Vivekananda is coming to India, returning to India from the West, and with him is Sister Nivedita, who has heard about the glories of India from Swami Vivekananda in such glowing terms. And when she first sees India with all those ideas in her mind, and she likes it, and she says, "Oh Swami," from the ship. She sees the Indian shore from the ship, and she says to Vivekananda, "Oh Swami, it is so peaceful, wonderful, it is so peaceful, looks so peaceful." And Swami Vivekananda was immediately like a ton of bricks, angrily, he shot her down. He said, "No, it is the peace of the grave. It is the peace of the grave. People are uneducated. People are subjugated by a foreign power. People are ill-nourished, tamasic. This is not real peace. This is a peace of the grave." So one must progress from tamas to activity, to vigor, to achievement, to power, and even to wealth and success in life. Then only spirituality comes. Real spirituality, from tamas to rajas to sattva. When he came to the West, his message was different. He wanted to bring the spiritual heritage of his ancient motherland to the West. And today we know how he has succeeded. Tremendously. 100 years later, yoga is a term more familiar in USA than in India. Last year, the United Nations recognized yoga as the International Day of Yoga in June, 22nd June, I think. And it was celebrated all over the world in 192 countries. And that is again directly traceable to Swami Vivekananda. Of course, the modern practitioners of yoga and all the yoga studios all over the country, they would be shocked to know, when they're getting flat abs and making their bodies trim and fit, Swami Vivekananda says to them, "We are not the body." Okay? You sit down and meditate and calm down your mind, and Swami Vivekananda says, "We are not the mind." True yoga is to show you your true identity is the spirit which is beyond the body and the mind, working through the body and the mind. Of course, it's good to have a healthy body and a mind which is calm and peaceful and virtuous. So this is the message that he brought to the West, and today after him followed a galaxy of spiritual teachers of all persuasions, various schools of yoga, of Vedanta, different schools of Hinduism, Buddhist teachers, Jaina teachers, Sikh teachers, and they all followed. And now this knowledge has spread and is spreading all over the world. Today, I'll conclude with this. The mantra which he quoted, that there is an infinite reality and that is what we have to realize. And he concludes with the mantra concludes with this, with the rather cryptic saying, "Nanyah pantha vidyate ayanaya." There is no other way to go beyond the limitations of suffering and mortality. And truly, in the 21st century, when we look around, having tried so many things in the 20th century, how can we overcome suffering? How can we attain peace and happiness? How can we have a sustainable life on this planet? And 20th century is 100 years of experimentation. and with sometimes horrifying results. We have experimented with communism, with free market liberalism. We have experimented with fascism and Nazism. We have experimented with genetic engineering, with hyper consumerism. We have experimented with medicines in various kinds, and the IT industry, the culture of consumerism and entertainment provided by our modern capitalist society, in all ways trying to overcome human suffering and get some kind of permanent satisfaction and happiness. And 100 years later, last year they say it was the hottest year in history, in human history. 100 years later, after that, we begin to see that not only we have not succeeded, but we are actually ruining our habitat. We are actually destroying any chance of future success by our attempts to get happiness out of consumption, by our attempts to get happiness out of the external world. Traditional religion is on the way out. We tried to replace it by the priest, or is replaced by the therapist. And we thought in a secular way we can take care of our problems, go to a therapist and have our mental problems dealt with. Look at the history of therapy in the 100 years, past 100 years, from the therapist's couch to the pill, which we have now, the Prozac and whatnot. Yes. And it's interesting, when people say that in these countries, for example, here in California, or in the West, in the advanced countries of the West, people are slowly losing interest in religion as communities become developed. You have all the amenities of life. You have a decent society, a working society. And people are safe and they can pursue their material goals. And so people tend to lose interest in religion, dropping attendance in churches and so on and so forth. But it's also the biggest argument, I feel, for real spirituality. Because when we have got a perfect society, we don't have to beg God for material wealth. You have material wealth, a very rich society. You don't have to go to God and beg God for health. You have got the best medical system, doctors. And I know you have a lot of doubts about the medical system here, but still, much better than. You see, there are two kinds of problems: problems of poverty and problems of plenty. So in this country, are the problems of plenty. But let me tell you, they are real problems. But always the problems of plenty are to be preferred over the problems of poverty. If the push comes to shove, you have to prefer this. After all this, having the best possible life that technology and money and civil society can give us, after that, we are still not satisfied. People are still unhappy. People are lonely. People have this meaninglessness, a vacuum in their lives. What more can this world give us? Whatever this world could give us, the best we are experiencing here. Reasonably speaking, the best we are experiencing here in the advanced countries of the West. What more can the world give us? Nothing more than this. And at this point, if we are not at all satisfied, that is the most powerful argument for spirituality and religion. So Swami Vivekananda, when he quotes that there is no other way, nanyah pantha vidyate ayanaya. Today, at this point, there is no other way. And religion and spirituality at their best, at their most rational, is Vivekananda. At their most liberal is Vivekananda. At their most vigorous is Vivekananda. I have heard scholars, monks, well versed in the scriptures, read Shankara thoroughly, but admitted to me privately that when it comes to a question of change in life, when it comes to a question of a crisis in life, they get the answer from Vivekananda. There is some power in those pages of the works of Vivekananda, where when we have problems, we read Vivekananda, we get an answer. When we have a crisis, we read Vivekananda, we get strength. When we want spirituality, read Vivekananda and we get a breakthrough, an insight. There is a power, actual spiritual power shining through those pages. So, in this world, a small example. One of the top executives of a multinational corporation, Johnson & Johnson in fact, he told me that he used to read Vivekananda. But he was not spiritual in the so-called sense of going to a temple or meditating, just used to read Vivekananda once in a while. And he got a job in a top liquor company. And he was doing very well. One day in the evening, he was sitting quietly with a book of Vivekananda's in his hands and reading. Suddenly he was struck by this thought. What is the purpose of my life now? Working day and night for this liquor company. So he says, I can see clearly the purpose of my life is to get as many people drunk as much as possible. And he said, truly speaking, I can either go on reading Vivekananda and give up this job, or I can do this job but I have to give up reading Vivekananda. And I have to take a decision. And he says, yet Swami, I don't want to become a Swami, I don't want to give up everything, and I want to go on leading this life. But what can I do? So what he did finally was he dropped that job to the horror of many of his friends. And he took up a job in a company which was producing this products for babies, for children. So it's a company where he doesn't clash with his conscience. So you see how reading Vivekananda leads him to make a choice. And there are so many examples. We can go on and on. So today, 2016, in this country which Vivekananda loved, and in this country, in this state, which Vivekananda loved most of all, California. We have been paying homage to Vivekananda since this morning, reading about Vivekananda, listening to talks about Vivekananda, and thinking about Vivekananda, and even looking at Vivekananda. Oh, another little example. I'm sorry, but there's this little boy who came to a Swami when the Swami was giving a talk to children. And said that, see, I have this problem. What problem? I have a talk tomorrow. I have to give a presentation tomorrow in the class and I'm very nervous. I'm scared. How do I get strength? How can I overcome my fear? You know, when I stand there, my knees start shaking in front of the students. So the Swami, instead of telling him to be brave and strong and all, he said, tomorrow when you speak, forget that you are standing there. Imagine, look at this picture. Imagine he is standing there and talking to your classmates. Just do that. And it worked like magic. That boy said, all my fear went away. I'm not there. It's Vivekananda talking to my friends. So I'll leave you with a little story of Vivekananda's. Reminded me about this little boy whom I spoke about. I read this, I was in Ramakrishna Mission, Deoghar. And more than 100 years ago, Swami Vivekananda visited Deoghar more than once. So there was this little school boy who is to study in Deoghar. Not in our school was not there at that time. In another school in Deoghar called R. Mitra School, it is still there. And this little boy, he said one day our teacher came to us and said, Swami Vivekananda, the famous Swami Vivekananda has come to town. So tomorrow we are going to go and meet him. So put on your best uniform and clothes and all, we'll go. So all these little kids, they went in a queue to meet the great Swami Vivekananda. And they found Swami Vivekananda was just coming out of the guest house for a walk. So he told the children, let's go for a walk. And this boy, he had put on a new pair of shoes. And he was walking next to Vivekananda. Many years later, he was a professor of philosophy in Bhagalpur University. That's when he wrote this. So he was walking next to Vivekananda. And Vivekananda pointed out something. And he said the kid couldn't understand that actually Swamiji was pointing out that his shoelaces were not tied properly. So pointed out once, pointed out twice. This kid couldn't understand. He looked at Vivekananda. Suddenly, the great Swami Vivekananda knelt down before the boy, undid his shoelaces, and did them properly again. And that was it. And when they went back home, actually back to the hostel, and that boy couldn't take off his shoes till very late in the night because people kept coming to his room to see those shoes which Swami Vivekananda had. Yes. So that was Vivekananda. I pray to Sri Sri Ramakrishna Deva, Ma Sharada, Swami Vivekananda, Swami Brahmananda to bless us all on this occasion. May the light that was, is and will be Vivekananda shine in and through our lives. Om Shanti.
So you have a grand feast on Swami Vivekananda just now. So keep that ideas and thoughts in you, and that will be a good food for meditation and thinking, the power, the strength to do something, to change character, to change life. We are here to do something, not to stay in the rut, in the hole in which we are born and we think about ourselves, but to come out of that and to find our real dignity, real essence, what is within. And we have, from the morning till now, we are thinking of Swami Vivekananda, and Vivekananda thinking what it makes. As Swamiji has mentioned in different ways, Vivekananda makes you great. That's why there is one Swami said that Vivekananda is a force. A dying man, if he listens to Vivekananda, he will say, "Oh death, please wait, let me listen." And the person who is lying down, if he listens to Swami Vivekananda, he will just sit up. He is unable to sit, but he will sit up with strength. And the person who is sitting, if he listens to Vivekananda, he will start walking. And the man walking then the street, he can run, he will run, because such a force, such a power acting behind Vivekananda. So Vivekananda is a force, but it is for transformation. We have to transform ourselves for our own benefit, and for the benefit of our family, and the benefit of our society, and the benefit of the whole world. We ought to remind ourselves again and again what principle Swami Vivekananda placed before us: the courage, the strength, the determination, not of arrogance, not of frustration, neither, in both ways, but to stand on in our inner power, and how to touch that ground of our very being, and how to be overwhelmed with that strength, so that let people see us, that we love Vivekananda. Let people see us, that we inculcate a little bit of his love for humanity, love for fellow beings, sacrificing attitude, giving up. And Swami Vivekananda said, the renunciation and what is the other word? Is the national service. Service and renunciation is the national ideal of India, and not only India, of all the countries in the world. Renunciation and service. Forget the little petty self and think of the others. And who in others? It is me. I am in others. With this Vedantic perspective, Swami Vivekananda wanted to unify the whole world. We are very fortunate that we at least live in an atmosphere where we have the opportunity to hear about these thoughts, ideas. If we want to absorb, there are enough resource. But we have to be open to that and receive the blessings which Vivekananda's message is all around us. So today, as our Swami Sahananda Maharaj used to always say, I also try to remind ourselves the same word, that on special days of like this, the birthdays and of Swami Vivekananda, Brahmananda, Ramakrishna, these great souls, when we come and assemble together, a special grace dawns on that particular day, because of whatever cosmic play goes on, so that it helps our mind to be uplifted. So let us take this opportunity and bless us with the message and life and teachings of Swami Vivekananda, so that we can be really a man. Mani means a human being. Human being, not manhush, as Ramakrishna said, to be conscious about our own dignity. Okay? So I crave the blessings of Swamiji today, and we end.